Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the top worldwide biohacking, health promoting podcasts out there. I've got you. I've got your insides. I've got your outsides. Let's help you look as good as you feel from the inside out. Be sure to check out the Hacked Life podcast with my good friend, Joel Evan. We have a super fun conversation that you are not going to want to miss.
All right, I'm here with Rachel Varga. She is a board-certified aesthetic nurse specialist and the host of the Rachel Varga Show podcast and the Beauty and the Biohacker podcast. Rachel, welcome to the show.
It's awesome to be here. Great to see you again, Joel. We had such a blast when I had you on my show, and it's great to have like a round two and definitely have you back on the show. I love your perspective. I love your energy, and I'm really excited to talk about all things radiance and kicking butt at life, taking names and all that rad stuff.
I'm super excited to have you because, and we're going to get into it today, but we're going to, you are known for anti-aging and skin health, and I got a chance to not only be on your podcast, but I actually also got to go through a 1 hour and 15-minute deep dive consultation on my skin, and it just so happens that I was actually having some issues with my skin, so it was perfect timing, and I was really impressed as a guy, and we were talking before, you're like, so tell me about your skin health, and I'm like, I don't know, like I put – let me tell you how bad my skin health care was. Okay, I didn't tell you this on the interview. I didn't tell you this in the consultation, but a friend brought this up, so I just thought about it. Like, okay, I take showers, and I used to put coconut oil. I would just grab some, and I would just throw that on my face. And I mean, I know that's like not the best thing, but like that's my definition of skincare. So you really blew my mind in your deep dive, and I'm going to be really excited to share that with a lot of the males that listen to this show, because there's a lot of them. And really kind of, I think, breaking some of those beliefs that we have about like, oh, that's my skincare is fine. Having disgusting rough skin is okay. So let's start it off. I'm just like, actually, before we even talk about guy skincare, I'm really curious. Like, I'm always really interested in how people got started. So, like, how did you get started in? Obviously, you're a practitioner as being a nurse, but then now you've like really pivoted into specifically anti-aging and skincare. Like, why did you find that to be such a need?
I just started to realize that I had a subset of clients that were thriving. They were radiant. These were men and women that were coming to me for the first time in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They had never done any type of rejuvenation intervention, and they had like the magic sauce. And I'm like, what is this? So this is what's called anecdotal information. And I basically wrote a whole ebook on my observations. But the long and short of it was these clients had very specific body, mind, spirit, energy practices. And when things are running really well on the inside, your skin is your largest organ. It will reflect the amount of oxidative stress that's running the show or all of that. And it was just actually really lovely to see the subset of clients that were really thriving. But of course, they were coming to me because they felt really good and they just wanted to look as good as they feel. So after 20,000 rejuvenation procedures, I'm a peer reviewer and board member of Plastic Surgical Nursing Journal, regular contributor to that, and also Journal of Aesthetic Nursing in the UK. I really wanted to kind of pivot. So I'm a double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist. That's my technical credential term. And I really wanted to provide information to the industry to offer the most safe and efficacious options, because in the space of rejuvenation, especially with injectables, it's kind of like the wild, wild west. It's like people always have this bright, shiny object syndrome, but sometimes we really do have to pause and just wait for it to be done for many, many years, because we've seen this before, even with like body contouring options, like energy contouring options for like getting rid of love handles and things like that. The first generation of a technology is never the best. You always want to wait for like the third or fourth iteration of it. And because not only will the technology get better, but the protocols and applications will also get better as well. So I love speaking to this. It's like, how can we make this better? How can we make it more safe? safe? And how can we make sure that we're not causing harm? So that's really where my passion was, and also sharing what this really beautiful, radiant, vibrant subset of men and women were doing that I looked after. And I actually work with a lot of individuals, especially men, a lot of famous men, a lot of tech moguls, and then just a lot of like regular guys that are really wanting to not look as tired as they might look to others. So a lot of times men were coming to me and they were saying, oh, I'm kind of concerned about like my low brows or hooded eyelids or lower eye bags. People say I look tired, or diffuse redness and stuff like that. So I actually love working with men. My hubby's a pro athlete. He's actually a 6-time world champion kickboxer, pro world champion kickboxer, Rachel Varga. He's got a super fun YouTube channel. You guys should all check it out. Like, totally good vibe guy, kind of guy. And
if you're able to keep his skin looking great and he gets punched in the face for a living, then you must know something, right?
Yeah, but I'm like really familiar with like, okay, like really masculine guys that are super fit and they don't want to take a lot of time to work on their skincare routine. They don't want like a 365 routine step kind of protocol. They just want something like cleanse, moisturize, sunscreen, scrub, boom, done. And I love like making sure that we're maximizing every step we're doing and getting multi-uses out of every step. And then you're not going to be spending a lot of time and money on your skin, but you're just being super intentional and have a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, guidance is key, which is something I just discovered because I had no idea what I was doing. And again, your consult, it was just so comprehensive. And the feedback I got and the list of supplements and just what you can do. And I mean, you can spend a lot of money, you can spend a little money, and you can still make a huge dent. So it's really cool. One of the things you just said, and you said it so fast, but you have this 5-step process for sophisticated skin. Can you kind of talk about that and kind of how you came up with this 5-step process? Because I think it's really, again, when you said it so fast, and it's so easy, but you can be done in 5 minutes. And I think as a guy, I'm like, that's just one extra thing I have to add, and I don't want to do that. And you're like, no, Joel, it's simple. Like, you can be done in 5 minutes. So you kind of talk about that and how you came about that?
Sure. Well, I started to notice that my clients that were coming to me, by the way, when I first started this stuff online, I was doing Zoom calls with people on the other side of the planet in 2017, and people were looking at me sideways, like, why are you doing that? I tend to like see the writings on the wall and be kind of like an innovator in a space. So getting into like podcasting and stuff like that, it's information and it's health promotion. Obviously, this isn't medical advice. This is educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. Sorry, I gotta say that. So what I started to notice was when individuals were coming to me and they were saying, oh, I don't wash my face because my skin's already sensitive. I just do a splash of water. I was like, okay. And I noticed a lot of people telling me that, and also a lot of people saying that they don't exfoliate because they feel like their skin's sensitive and they don't want to exfoliate, and also not wearing sunscreen because they feel like they're not outside very much, maybe just going from the house to the shop or commuting to work or whatever. But we're also in front of our devices all the time, which contains a lot of LED light, blue light, which actually reaches 3 times deeper into the skin than what we get outside.
Wow.
So I just started to notice a couple of commonalities. And as soon as I had a client on a super basic protocol, cleansing morning and night, moisturizing morning and night, sunscreen, mineral sunscreen only, that won't sting your eyes or stink like, the beach in summer.
Yeah.
And a really good exfoliant to just like get the dead skin off, and maybe once or twice a week doing like an overnight at home, like super simple amino acid type of peel, super clean, by the way, and like not painful. Guys don't like pain at all. So
what are you
trust
talking
me.
about? We're tough.
Well, yeah, but not with your face skin. It's really fascinating. So, because guys aren't used to touching their face at all. So when they show up for a treatment and they have someone manipulating the skin for the first time, it's that because you're not desensitized to like touching your face, and then you have someone else doing it for you. But I also think that there's something to be said for the actual for the actual nociceptors in the skin that detect pain and things like that. So I think it might be different for men. So when I do like laser treatments for guys, I have to make sure they're extra comfortable, maybe use some extra numbing. It's not that you're a wimp, it's just your physiology, I think, is different with your skin cell pain receptors. Is fascinating. So if you're like, okay, well, how can I maybe tweak some of the products that I have now to follow my 5 steps? You can just download my 5 steps to sophisticated skin. I'm sure, Joel, you'll link it in the episode here.
Yep.
And it's just really simple, just some things that you can start to employ right away. But just starting with the basics, you will start to notice, but also using the right stuff. So products that I've worked with since 2011, a lot of them. I work with about 13 brands. Always be cautious of someone trying to peddle just one brand, because in my experience, every brand has duds and superstars. So I sift through that for my clients. And I also make sure that we're not using products that have parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances, not tested on animals. Why that's important for the gents out there is because we don't want to mess with your hormones. We're already dealing with estrogen dominance in the population. Trust me, as a woman, I want the gents to have healthy testosterone because that makes you happy, that makes me happy, and all of that. So we want to make sure your personal care products like that Axe spray, axe that, and make sure
that's such a popular one.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And think about this. When you smell things like that, they go in your brain. So I hate to say like brand names and stuff like that, but something that rhymes with spice is like deodorants and shaving products. You got to be really careful with that stuff because it could actually be making you sick. And you can actually even shave your face with the gel cleanser. So there we go. You're washing your face and shaving at the same time. Keep your cleanser, keep your scrub in your shower. And then you don't even have to think about it. Like, hopefully you're showering every day. So how hard is it to spend 30 seconds to actually wash your face? And you don't want your lady aging too much better than you either. And you also don't want to develop things like skin cancers and accelerated aging because that's a real thing.
Yeah. Speaking of skin cancer, let's just talk about that because, I came to you on our consult and I was telling you I got this flaky skin over my top brow and it's just interesting. I haven't had this ever, and it just whatever. I'll wash. I'll put some cream. I have a serum. I'll put on there and it might go away for a day and then it comes back. And then I was, joking. I said, yeah, you freaked me out. You started talking about cancer. You're like, oh, Joel, well, that's indicative of like pre-cancer. So, but just talk about that. And you told me not to panic, but you just said, hey, there's some things we can do, laser treatments. But just, can you kind of talk about that, that idea of just like, hey, flaky skin to me just means dry skin, but it could mean like something way, way larger.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the skin is your largest organ. It's also a huge way that we detox, right? So what happens with the skin is a reflection of what's going on. So say, for example, you binge on like sugar, alcohol, do all the things you shouldn't, but at the moment it seems like a great idea. Your skin will pay for it about 2-3 weeks later because it's like the inner inflammation that sugar and alcohol causes. Then you'll have more diffuse redness and breakouts, stuff like that. So my skin type, I'm what's called a Fitzpatrick skin type 2. I'm very prone to skin cancers. In fact, I've already had a lesion removed on my back because I was one of those very naughty young ladies that did the sun boost when I was 17 to 19. Goodness forbid. So,
and that was cancerous, you found out?
It was precancerous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the deal is you want to check your body out or have your partner, or better yet, have a yearly assessment with a dermatologist to do a full body scan. And what's really important is if you have any moles that have either like shown up right away, or the size of it is larger than the end of a pencil, or it's irregular pigmentation, irregular border, it's bled, it kind of comes and goes, you really need to get those looked at because skin cancers can actually become other cancers. They can actually metastasize. So there's that. But also there's these really annoying precancerous lesions called actinic keratoses that are very common, especially as we age, especially with my skin type, very fair, light skin. I cannot tan to save my life. You'll see me in a dark room kind of thing. So I kind of have to fake it a little bit, but I also take supplements to actually give me a degree of sun protection from the inside out because I am a nature babe. I 4x4 twice a week, 3 hours into the bush. I love being outside. I love being in nature. But I also want to like make sure that I'm not going to burn or age myself doing the things I love. So I do take appropriate supplements with antioxidants that are actually 15 years third-party independent lab tested to reduce even diffuse redness of the cheeks, the nose, even brighten the eyes, help with pigmentation. But you always want to get things looked at. So like red, flaky areas that kind of come and go on the face, those can be hopefully prevented, but they do need to get looked at. And if you've had one, you're probably going to get more. And then you have to ring up your doctor and say, hey, can you look at these? And you get them burned off with liquid nitrogen. And then you have this red area for like a month. And guys don't like red faces. So if we can prevent these from happening, that's even better. It's really all about being proactive with your aging. It's not about like, I really actually do not like that word anti-aging. I like the word proactive aging. We're all going to age. In fact, aging is a privilege. It's not something to be scared of, but there are very specific things that we can do to slow down the process, which is why I'm such a huge fan of biohacking also.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Speaking of supplements, you touched on that. And you have a lot of data. You've seen tons and tons and tons of people. In general, and again, everyone's a bio individual, so you can't say, hey, what's going to work for this person works for that one. Like you just mentioned your skin type, and when we were doing our assessment, you said, like, this is going to be better for you, Joel. But in general, if we're talking about generalities, like, are there like a top 5 supplements that you see like every person should probably have? Oh, you got 3.
It's 3. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. What are they?
It's like the okay with scuba diving when I scuba dove with sharks a couple of years ago. That was super fun. Okay, there's 3 sharks, right? Anyways, 60
Is that what you did?
Well, we're all like shark.
Was that the wave you gave him?
We're okay. Not freaking out, keeping our appendages to ourselves. It was a really good time. So
if you don't know Rachel, by the way, guys, she is a warrior. She just got back. She's in Canada. She just got back from the truck convoy. She does the 4x4. Her husband's a fighter. Like, she is really just, man, I just have a lot of just love and respect for you. So you do a lot of cool things.
Well, that's what lights me up, right? Those are all elements of how I practice body, mind, spirit, energy practices, right? And I've always been like that. I was like that girl in middle school taking mechanics over art and drama and helping the boys take the piston rings off for them when we're taking apart a 2-stroke motor. Or I work on my Land Rover myself and help other people in the bush. I've definitely had to get myself out of mechanical breakdowns a couple of times. So it's kind of fun. It's part of the adventure.
That's the spirit you have to have.
Yeah, definitely. But that's what I do for fun, right? Like, I'd rather do that stuff. Like, life right now, whew, better than Netflix, I'll tell you that. This will be a Netflix movie at some point.
Yeah.
But when it comes to supplements, there are really 3 key supplements. Obviously, collagen. Supplementing your collagen is really key. But you want to know about collagen when we're talking about bioavailability, we're talking about specificity of our DNA and epigenetics. For the most part, people tolerate beef, non-GMO, grass-fed collagen better than, say, like a poultry or a marine. But everyone's different. So we can actually test for that, which type of collagen we respond better to. So that's where biohacking comes in. And I have a bunch of my favorite biohacking options on my favorites page at RachelVarga.ca. Like, my hubby's an athlete. We've been doing biohacking before biohacking was a thing. Dave Asprey, he's actually a friend of mine. I've known Dave now for about 5 years. He actually came to see me.
Yeah, you were on his podcast, which is a great episode, by the way.
Yeah, episode 668. And we've become friends. And trust me, like, that guy, I know him personally. He's a good guy. He is a really, really good guy. And he really just wants to get good info out there. Him and his wife, great people. And so when we incorporate testing instead of guessing, then you can get hyper specific with what type of collagen is best for you. So I actually just this morning had, it's like this golden elixir turmeric collagen with a little bit of monk fruit and ginger and black pepper. And it's got some extra cofactors to it, right? So we can take collagen that are specific for skin health. So that's what I do. I kind of sift through the noise of all these garbage products out there, right? Every influencer is coming out with a product. Be very careful about that though, because a lot of it's white labeled. So what they do is they ring up a company, they ring up a formulator, I have a background in biochem, gen chem, organic chem, biochem, and they say, hey, I want to make a supplement or I want to make a skincare line. And they basically can oftentimes pay for formula and charge like a ridiculous amount of money for it on their stores online, but it's the same formula that's for $8 on the shelves. So trust me, I will lead you away from that and keep you on the straight and narrow. So the collagen, the specific type of collagen, the cofactors in that collagen are all really important to know about, but absolutely freaking collagen every single day. I love it.
Got it. Wow.
The second thing is antioxidants. So we need to take antioxidants to scavenge the free radicals. So as our mitochondria are making ATP to fuel our body, it's the energy currency for the body, we're kicking off hydrogen ions, right? So that's why we also need to ground. So these hydrogen ions, they can kind of like bind and create havoc, and also free radicals that we're exposed to in air pollution and in our foods. We need scavengers to take care of that stuff. And one of the other things that we want to be aware of with antioxidants is what kind of antioxidant you're using. So for example, like superoxide dismutase is super potent. So I have one here, that's the supplement I was referring to earlier, that one molecule of superoxide dismutase neutralizes 1 million up to 1 billion free radicals. So typically if you're picking up a multivitamin from your health food store and you have like one molecule of vitamin C, it's going to neutralize 1 free radical. It's typically a 1-to-1, but the technology is available now that it can like be way better than that. But also the fascinating thing when I mentioned the hydrogen ions is that electromagnetically we can become ungrounded, if you will. If we have any electricians in here, you guys are going to love this. So when we actually contact the earth, what happens is the earth pulls the positive ions from our body and gives us more negative ions. And we need to maintain this electromagnetic, electrochemical gradient so that everything in our body in the mitochondria, the electron transport chain, functions as it needs to. This also even has an overlap with antioxidants and grounding with peptide and hormone formation, because ions literally mediate absolutely everything in your body. And then the third supplement is omegas. We definitely want to be taking omegas, and your audience is probably already aware, if they're biohackers, to avoid things like canola oil and soybean oil. But omegas are really important because your skin cell is made up of a phospholipid fatty layer. So you need to support your body with healthy amino acids so that the skin cells has the integrity and the support it needs to actually function appropriately. Omegas actually really can even help with things like acne. So I'm a bit acne prone. I'm in my mid-30s. My biological age, I've tested this, is actually 9 years younger. So all this stuff is working. And again, we have to test instead of guess, right?
Yeah, and your omegas, all that's on your favorites page, because I was just curious if there's a brand. There's so much discrepancy when it comes to omegas, and that they lose a lot of their purity and just their like life, and to even actually make a dent. And but you have found an omega that actually you're comfortable with and you think is a pretty good brand.
I actually have a couple. So I have like a men's formula of omega with a multivitamin, a greens, hormone support, and then a women's one. And then I also have 3 other types of omegas that I work with as well. I can't actually, this is really frustrating, but I can't put everything on my online e-store, because what happens now, and we've seen this with some of the like big health promoters online, is their websites get shut down, or actually the payment system that is used to process online e-stores, if certain names are in the item list. I actually heard of a friend just the other day, we were talking about payment solutions. One of his clients had, I think Shopify holds like tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. And I've also, I heard about this about 1.5 years ago. So I work with JJ Virgin and all these cool people, and we knew about this a long time ago. So I actually don't put everything on my e-store for very specific reasons. Even when I say things like certain vitamin names on, say, my YouTube, because I live stream, I won't have full monetization of it. It's really unfortunate. So that's why having the one-on-one with me is great. I have like certain things on my e-store, but absolutely not everything, because also a lot of the brands I work with, because they're practitioner medical grade, they don't allow for online e-store placement of their products. You have to get it through a practitioner. That's why having a one-on-one with me is really helpful. But I also do like more deep dives in my skin camp programs too. But like for the gents, definitely the one-on-one is the way to go.
Yeah. What I love about you too is that you only use, like, you're not biased towards some type of supplement just because some influencer or whatever. Like, you use like the best of the best medical grade stuff, and so anybody that's coming to you they're getting, like, again, the best of the best. So that's something that I really enjoy working with you.
But the other thing is that I always have to evolve it, right? So, for example, one of the omegas I was using before, it's got an ingredient in there that I don't love, and now I have a better one. So I go through these shifts with products. So that's why I don't like to make like blanket product recommendations on shows like this, because someone might be listening to it, but my recommendations now are different. So it's constantly evolving. So yeah, a lot of my clients, they'll just like shoot me an email and say, hey, I need to reorder something. Do you have any recommendations? My skin's doing this kind of thing. And then I'll give them updates that way too, which is great. So just wanted to throw that out there, that it's constantly evolving, but I trust supplements and practitioner grade products that have been companies that have been formulating them for 15 to 30 years with third-party independent lab-tested research that are also non-GMO, gluten-free, all that stuff. So like I said, I do that heavy lifting for you. I've gone to countless conferences. When you have a show like you do, Joel, I've done 180 interviews plus to date. I've learned more in those interviews than I feel like I have in like 8 years of post-secondary. So
that's incredible. I love that. Yeah,
I
feel the same way.
Yeah.
You're a biohacker. Matter of fact, you're drinking a green juice right now, and you got red light shining on yourself. I'm curious, what are some easy or just some of your favorite biohacks specifically for the skin or anti-aging that you really gravitate to?
100%. I love getting asked this, because one of the other things that I started to notice that my most radiant clients were absolutely biohackers. Biohackers that are actually really intuitive and in tune with themselves on an energetic and spiritual level. These people just got like that je ne sais quoi, if you will. They got the juice of life. They got that life force. Life force is actually something that I'm particularly interested in, given that my husband is a martial artist, and yeah, I hit the bags, he holds pads for me too. It's like, you don't want to run into me in a dark alley, that's for sure. Jiu-jitsu, kickboxing for 10 years. Super fun,
that's
right? It's super empowering.
Yeah.
Really empowering as a woman to do that. So like, guys out there, if you do those kinds of sports, get your lady into it too. It's actually really fun. When you start to grapple and like wrestle each other, trust me, you'll thank me later.
Oxytocin. All kinds of chemicals are being released right there. Yep.
Yeah, I love like going to the gym and like feeding off my husband's testosterone, and the other guys in there too. Yeah. It's really good. It's awesome. And so for
Rachel,
biohacking,
sorry, I want to interrupt you really quick because it's interesting. I've talked to parent coaches and been coached by some high level parenting coaches, and that's an interesting thing that you just talked about, like that play, that wrestling. And one of the things that one of my coaches said to me is like, Joel, your sons, my boys especially, like they need that wrestling, they need that like outlet, like even if it's just 5 minutes, like they need that. And so it's not. And here's an interesting thing: everything I've learned about my kids usually can always be applicable to my marriage and just like in general life. Like if you're treating people a certain way as like the kids you love and you have, man, like it equates to everything on a grander scale. Anyway, so yeah, you're right. I mean, it's big, that testosterone, that oxytocin, all that being released, the pheromones. So anyways, because I know you're going to have kids pretty soon.
It's super fun.
So,
it's super duper fun being able to play, right? And we kind of like forget that as adults. Like we get tied up in adulting. Heck no. You have to do what lights you up, what's fun and all of that. And for me as a woman, doing what I do has never been the norm. It's always made me a little bit different. I was that girl at 10 years old playing electric guitar in band and like playing punk rock on Friday nights at church and stuff like that. But I mean, it was all wholesome. So if any of you guys out there have daughters, buy them a guitar. Maybe not drums, because drums are super loud in the house. But it's really good because it's good for your brain. So the funny thing with like biohacking and all of this proactive aging stuff is it's also going to, especially right now in the world, is this craziness where it's like, it's crazy. Every 10 seconds, something's going on.
Something's changing.
You got to be psychologically rock solid up here. So when we biohack, we're reducing oxidative stress, we're reducing brain fog, we're allowing our body to detoxify itself. I did a couple sauna session yesterday at Upgrade Labs Victoria. I freaking love having that in my city. Thank you, Dave. It's just awesome. So yeah, I do all that really cool stuff. I did the cryotherapy. They just got that. And so I did the beginner session. I was like, no, that's not hard enough. So then I did like the hardest one. It's like, okay, that's more my thing, because it's pretty cold here right now. And a couple of weeks ago, I have like a metal trough outside, and it had about probably 4 inches of ice. So hubby took my axe from my Land Rover that I used to chop down trees if a tree goes down in the road, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Got to be prepared here. And so we got into the ice. And the cool thing about cold water therapy is the tremendous impact that it can give you on learning how to regulate your nervous system. So I started doing cold therapy because I was in 2 pretty bad car crashes. None were my fault. In fact, I was rear-ended. And then the second time I was T-boned while I was going to the beach to do cold therapy by someone who ran a red light. But we can never have this woe is me mentality. Do things to make you feel better. So instead of going like the big P route on meds and stuff like that to deal with like nervous system stuff and pain, I was just like, no, I'm gonna work through this. And it actually made me age better in the process. Yep. Very ironic, actually. So cold therapy, red light therapy, sauna therapy. Love the cell trainer at Upgrade too. So it like shrinks and expands your cells and promotes cellular health. And I really do feel that had an impact on my biological age that I tested recently. Supplements, I love to use technologies to create more coherence in and around my home from an electromagnetic standpoint, because I'm on a fault line. And yeah, I mean, if you ask me something regarding biohacking, I'd probably do it. It's just, there's like, where do I start? But my favorites page on my website is literally where I have everything. If you want to like jack up your, is, vehicle talk again, right? If you get stuck.
I didn't know.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
It infiltrates everything I do.
Yes.
It makes it fun for me. But it will make you work out better when you say have like an NAD supplement. Your mitochondria just have all the fuel that it needs. But yeah, I find that biohacking for me tremendously helps to maintain clarity. So I'm like super freaking clear right now, like laser focused. And so I had my collagen this morning, and this is organic matcha with just like a little bit of local honey. And it's delicious. I actually don't drink coffee as much as I used to. Sorry, Dave. And when I switched over to matcha, I really noticed more clarity, more of this like smooth energy, more focus, less like jitteriness, and all of that. Filtered water is really important too. I do red light therapy morning and night, but Gabe and I were doing red light therapy like before it was even a thing, with like this homemade little like paddle that we would strap on, and it was really cumbersome. And
Awesome. I want to jump into some lightning round questions, but before I do that, actually, I'm curious. You're doing so much, just in all areas. I'm curious. Are any exciting projects that you're working on right now?
Honestly, I feel like just maintaining my client care is what gives me so much satisfaction. So tuning into like the shows and my clients that work with me, that's really where my attention is. And also obviously following some of the things that are happening with the convoy. I feel like just this last week, that's like all of where my attention is going, kind of like praying and supporting in the background as best I can, being a part of it, my local community and stuff like that. Yeah, I feel like what's next on the horizon is just continuing to show up in the way I'm meant to show up. So whether that's like quote unquote life purpose and stuff like that, but also being flexible. It's, say for example, something else comes up. You have to maintain your focus on what your business is that's actually going to put food on your table. Yeah. But it's okay to sometimes like branch out and be like, oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? It's going to keep your mind sharp and actually help to cultivate some neuroplasticity by making new neural connections, as per like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, all those rad people that I've had the pleasure of working with live, which is really cool. And I'm really grateful for people like that. But what is next on the horizon, well, obviously, you know, family and stuff like that, that'll be exciting. Man, our kids are going to be fighting when they come out of the womb, I'll tell you that much, between Gabe and I.
How many kids are
you
going to have?
Fun. I don't know.
Any idea? I mean, obviously, you're a very spiritual person, and like you said, you're the kind of person that you don't need a number to make you happy. You'll see as it goes. But I'm just curious if you just, do you 2, 3, is there any?
I feel like there's going to be a boy first. Like, I really want a boy first. And then maybe a little girl first so that the boy can look after the little girl. Keep the boys away, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see. I have twins in my family. But at the same time, Gabe and I, like, if we didn't, we'd still be totally happy with it. So we were talking about this last night, actually. I think it's really important to make sure you're flexible in every aspect of your life, to be honest. But that next step as a human to actually have a family, it's like this next rite of passage. So that's actually one of the reasons also that I'm so friggin' passionate about health and vitality right now for both my hubby and I is I'm actively in preconception phase. And a lot of people don't think about this. Preconception being 3 to 6 months out for both the lady and the gent. So it's not just all on the woman. Like, you guys make spermies too, right? So we got to make sure that those little fighters are good swimmers. So there's all this stuff when both of you as partners are doing it together, you're definitely not going to have one that looks more crazy than the other. So if you do it together, then it's good. And then you both reap the benefits. Air purification. That's another really important thing in the home too, is for the skin, for biohacking. So I love making sure that my clients are using good air purifiers in their home to reduce things like dirt, oil, debris, pollution from resting on the skin, which actually creates oxidative stress, believe it or not. And also good lighting. So changing out all your LEDs in your home to halogen. Your electrician's going to think you're crazy because LEDs are super cheap and they last forever. But they definitely emit this like really annoying buzzing sound, but the light's just terrible for your skin, your eyes. I think it's contributing to hair loss also, I would postulate. I'm actually going to write a paper on that for sure.
Wow. Yeah, you really dialed me in on the lights and the air purifier. So those were two things that I hadn't thought of. So I was, and I consider myself, a biohacker, a guy who's pretty in tune with this stuff. And so I was really happy that you'd mentioned that. Those are two things that they were blind spots for me. So
the air and the lighting are really specific for skin health though. So when you are a biohacker, you look at biohacking, but when you're a double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist with 10 years in the game, 20,000 procedures, you then start to see the overlap of biohacking for skin health and slowing aging essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. I want to jump into some lightning round questions, but before I do, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
Anything? Oh, I think something like, what else is your background with your family? That's kind of a cool question to ask, because a lot of times we forget that our ancestors or our quote unquote lineage, that gets carried on to us. So I was talking about this actually yesterday with my hubby, because he's like, you have this very specific position with world events. And it's like, yeah, because I grew up seeing my grandpa who, here we go, underdog story here. Yeah, he was a farmer boy from Saskatchewan in Canada. And actually the Regina Rifles in World War II, he was a sergeant. They were really pivotal in Normandy You've probably heard this. The Canadians had a really big part to play in Normandy, and that was, my grandpa was a part of that. So I grew up with that, like huge fighter, like grandpa's a fighter, hubby's a fighter, right? And then he was always watching the news and stuff like this, like keeping up with current events while I was spending time with him. And he always really was into what was just and what was according to the law of the land and all of that. So I really respect him for that. But the other thing with my background is my great grandmother was a second ordained evangelical female minister in Canada. So I also have that running in the background. And also my great grandma was one of the first people to come over from the UK as a spiritualist. So it's really fascinating, if you've never thought about this, to actually look at your ancestors, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. What did they do? What aspects of them, because we carry DNA and all of this stuff, and there's going to be memories and emotions for sure trapped in that and held in that. And how can you learn more about yourself from a deeper energetic spiritual level as well that could actually give you insight into characteristics that you probably have that could actually you could use to your benefit. So that's why that body, mind, spirit, energy stuff is really important to acknowledge when you're wanting to excel at life with your workouts, with your business, with your family life, and just looking and feeling your best in general. What's going on in the background and the pre-programmed stuff that we're all exposed to now. I mean, that's a whole other topic as well.
Yeah, it is. I love that you said that, though. I mean, and it's almost in. There's just so much that you say it's another topic, but I just love the idea, the respect that you have, right? And you're so intentional. And I mean, just coming on your podcast and just some of the things we did prior to the podcast, and you really blew my mind on just how intentional you are about this. And the interesting thing I always find with many of the people that I meet that are really successful is they didn't just get here like on accident. And you're someone, again, it's like people, if oh, look at her, like it must be nice for her. Like I'm sure there's, these are the comments people will make one day. Oh, it must be nice that she has such beautiful skin, but you didn't get there overnight. You do things, you show up all the time. You're super consistent and you're very mindful of that. But anyways, and so I want to acknowledge you for that. But I just love that idea of almost like paying homage to where you've come, and just, it's very actually humbling just to think about that. Yeah, it's amazing. So thank you.
When you mentioned that, the other thing on the flip side, we cannot be go, go, go all the time, because that lends to adrenal fatigue, which is huge right now. We're like under the most stress we've ever been under in our lives across the globe. Some places worse than others. Like here in Canada, it's been really tough over the last 2 years. Australia is like 4 months ahead of Canada. The US is like 4 months behind Canada, sort of thing. It's kind of what we're seeing. And I hear that in scientific roundtables as well, with research that comes out that I'm a part of weekly. But it's just, it's really important to also give your body, mind, spirit, and energy a break. And give yourself the grace to, like, I don't do podcasts or social media lives if I'm not feeling it. Like, forget it. It's going to come across as like just boring and nobody's going to want to listen. I like to do it when I feel inspired. So that's why, like, my 4x4 days, off grid, 3 hours in the bush, no cell reception. Like, if you're in a pickle, you got to get yourself out. Otherwise you're going to be in an even bigger pickle. But that's how I kind of like play and recharge and give myself a break from EMFs and Wi-Fi, because I do think that's one of the biggest threats to us as humans right now. Mark my words. Electromagnetic disruption of our cellular processes is very serious, especially with blood flow and like gluing. There's a lot of research on this, actually, mainly from the UK. But knowing when to give yourself a break and having the grace to do it and not just slog it out, because that's when you'll burn out. And like I do a lot, like you said, but I haven't burnt out in the last 4 years because I always make sure I'm listening to what my body, mind, spirit, energy wants. I'm always doing new practices, and I'm always playing and taking that time off. Like probably most of the last month and a half, I I didn't work very much because I didn't have the energy to. So I make sure that I know when certain seasons happen, if that's going to be more like hermit mode, like usually winter is kind of hermit mode for me. It's kind of like cozy and stuff like that. And then I can kind of like push a little bit more in the spring, summer. So listening to yourself as a rhythmic being, living on a rhythmic planet and a rhythmic universe, you don't just want to go 100% full steam ahead all the time.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's jump into some lightning round questions, shall we? I'm curious, if the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
Be freaking proud. Knowing that I didn't stay quiet, I really held strong to my ethics, my convictions, what felt right for me. Being younger, I kind of wish that I had read we never were taught this stuff in school, like the Canadian Charter of Rights, the Canadian Constitution. For you in the US, you have the Bill of Rights, your Constitution, and you have one other. But you need to teach your kids this stuff. And if you haven't actually read every single word in those documents, don't come crying to me when you're worrying about your freedoms, because this is the stuff everyone needs to know about. This is the stuff that it's up to us. It's our responsibility to know about. So if I were younger, having a flash forward to my future self, I probably wouldn't be able to really understand the amount of work that I have put into myself. It probably wouldn't really make sense. Like I might like look at myself, oh, you have 2 podcasts, you have an online business, you get to like hang out and have sweet conversations all the time and do all this cool stuff and research. That's what I would see, but I wouldn't have the capacity to feel what I feel now. So that's where the cultivation comes in, which is really the beauty of it all. And when we're talking about, like I work with a lot of radiance, the whole concept of radiance is what lights me up and is pretty much like my life's work and unpacking and like, what is radiance and who has radiance? Like looking at people's eyes, you can tell when people got that like sparkle, right? And other times they're just kind of like this, and you can kind of tell they're just like about the money, and they look inflamed, and they're kind of like always complaining about how tired they are and the woes of the world. So like you can kind of see the contrasts, if you will. But I wouldn't have a concept to like grasp like the human I am today. Looking back, you would just see like the achievements and the things, which isn't nearly as important.
Yeah, you're right. It's who you became on that journey, right? I'm curious, what are some choices that you made that you think made you who you are today?
I think not being afraid to be who I wanted to be, kind of like the things I wanted to do, right? Like playing hockey, playing electric guitar, like mechanics, like all this stuff. It was always different. I always was kind of like one of the guys growing up, and I still had like girlfriends and stuff like that, but guys are way more fun. Like you guys have all the fun stuff. Like girls get to play with like dolls and play house and makeup and hair. It's like, okay, yeah, that stuff's cool too, but the guy stuff's way more fun. So that was kind of different about me from the get-go. My dad's really awesome, so he bought me my first 2 guitars, and then I got myself a Gibson Les Paul last year because I really like Mark Knopfler and those kind of guitarists and all of that. I was actually playing last night. But just like sometimes being a little bit different can sometimes actually give you that like sweet sauce when it comes to showing up for other people and having that be a draw. And it's funny, Dave Asprey actually really pointed this out with me. He's like a full-on branding expert. And he told me a couple things. I'm like, okay, I'm going to lean into that because I'll be completely honest with you. When I started showing up online, I was like this like polished professional. I had like a stick up there or something. But I was like too nervous to really be myself because I didn't think that was appropriate, talking about like rejuvenation and being in the profession. So then I started to realize that just really wasn't relatable or anything like that. It wasn't nearly as fun. Like, trust me, having like calls with you and all that now, like just like being myself it just makes it so much more enjoyable than just like trying to hide these aspects that really make you you.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because the episode with you and Dave was a very playful episode. It was very lighthearted and just very playful. So yeah. And I'm glad. Like that's who I want to see show up. I don't want this like special proper person. I can't relate to that person. So good advice. Speaking of Dave Asprey, I don't know if this will be your answer, but I'm just curious. You are such a force in the health and wellness world. Who inspires you? Or is there anybody that you follow that?
Well, there's a lot of people and things that inspire me. I mean, there's probably at least 20 to 30. I honestly, my husband's gonna probably never hear this episode, but I'm gonna like tell him to listen to it and be like, I mentioned you.
Yeah.
It's him. We really have these really interesting aspects of ourselves that are completely different, right? So I'm like very much, okay, this is what's right for me, like very much into laws and constitutional rights and things like that. And also ethics as a nurse, like professional responsibility. Hello. So that's kind of the stuff that really drives me as to making decisions and following certain world events. And then he's just kind of a little bit more, everyone's really just doing the best that they can, what's right for them, and all of that. So he has like a very different outlook than I do, but when we come together, it's actually just this like really good and harmonious balance. But for the first little bit of our relationship, we really did kind of like, we didn't understand our mind maps, right?
Yeah.
We were really drawn to each other because we like to work out and things like that. We had a lot of fun. It was really easy. But then once things started to get a little bit deeper, we weren't really understanding each other in like the mental, psychological aspects. But now we've understood that what really kind of like keeps us together is the fact that we are very different. So yeah, I learned a lot from him, and especially as a martial artist, you really understand the life force and how to utilize it and how to always put your like the spiritual and energetic stuff for me is definitely a strong suit for me. And then like the physical component is a strong suit for him as an athlete. So he'll be like, have you worked out today, Rachel? And be like, no. And then I'll be like, have you taken your supplements and done your skincare? He'll be like, no. So we kind of like call each other out. And I think it's really important to do it like really gracefully and not in a nagging way. That's where the finesse comes in.
Totally. Yeah. That's a lifelong skill, by the way. Awesome stuff. Couple more questions. I'm a big reader. Any books, is there like top 1 to 3 books that just jump at you that had a lot of impact in your life that you'd recommend someone or people read?
Well, Bible. I mean, there's that. So I really actually enjoy the New King James Version. It's kind of like reading Latin sometimes. It's like thou art, right?
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. There's like power to that. But that's just my lineage. So if you're tuning in here and you're like, whatever, I don't believe in that stuff, that's cool too. I mean, you just have to figure out what your lineage is. There's many different spiritual practices out there. But depending on who you are and what resonates with you, it's going to look different from anyone else. And that's totally fine. Obviously, that's a pretty good book. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I really I love reading books. I'm reading a book right now called The Mists of Avalon. So this is actually the women that were around during King Arthur's time. So it's the story of the women. And when we think of like King Arthur and all these other warriors and leaders, especially like in the UK and Scotland and Ireland, you hear about the man's story, but you don't hear about the supportive role of the women. And even when you look at like Pharaoh statues, it's always the woman who's holding the man's arm. And I find that interesting, like learning a little bit more about like the history of how women kind of were in the communities and how they supported their men. But the Mists of Avalon is really cool because it's all these like powerful women and mystics, and I just find it fascinating. If I ever had a past life, it was probably something to do with that. So that just kind of entertains me. And is there any other book that really stands out to me? Oh, spy books. Yeah, I love I love reading like specifically Russian espionage novels.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that are like written by like MI5, MI6 people that I really understand what's called like tradecraft and streetcraft and all this cool stuff. So I think because over the last maybe 5-6 years, I've read a lot of books on that and understand this like play between these international countries. I kind of have a different perspective with like the happenings in the world.
Yeah.
And it's also like just this like other life that I could never lead or live, and that just really fascinates me. So Jason Matthews is an author I absolutely love. He's got like a really good trilogy of espionage type of novels. And they're fun. It's like either super feminine or super masculine. So just kind of like mixing it up a little bit. I'll probably start reading Ready Player One, Ready Player Two, because Gabe's got those books. And actually in the first part of Ready Player Two, the author did something really, really cool. Gabe and I were at a cabin in the woods a couple of weeks ago. I was, stoking the fire. I was making like this little bit of wood we had last for like hours. So it takes a little bit of effort, but I love it. It's like so mesmerizing looking into a fire and keeping it going. As opposed to your phone. It's just way better. And he said in the intro of the book, because it's all about this virtual reality and being in like the metaverse, if you will, right? You guys have probably seen the Ready Player One movie. The books are much better. I haven't read them yet, but that's what Gabe says. But in the second one, the author prefaces it by saying, if you want to win at the game of life, you have to find joy. That's how you win. And it's kind of like really deep, because if you want to succeed as a human, that's also... It's just really, it was really kind of special when he shared that with me. It's like, yes, I love that this is getting into the mainstream, because that really is how we win at life. How we win at this like virtual reality. If you like, we're not actually anything solid. Nothing is solid. It's literally just like atoms vibrating super fast. And the more they're clumped together, the more something is that's solid. And there's all this space in between. So really, what we see is really only 3D. Right? Yeah. And animals see other things, like they are able to see different colors than we are on the different visual spectrums. And we have all these gadgets like the LHC and the CERN that we can actually now visualize what's the space in between each of the atoms, which is the Higgs boson field, which is almost like this like neural, I'm such a dork, which is almost like this like neural web. Deep. That everything is connected to. So it's really cool. But like this like meat suit of ours, it's just our job to look after it.
So amazing. I love how you phrase that. Man, this was amazing. Last but not least, Rachel, where can people find you and learn more about you?
Well, all of you definitely are going to have to listen to Joel's interview on the Rachel Varga podcast. So you can find me anywhere. And also my second show, The Beauty and the Biohacker podcast, with my good friend and co-host Katie Moore. She's actually a professionally trained journalist. So that's always super fun when we're talking about biohacking and stuff like that. So those two shows, subscribe to the Rachel Varga official YouTube so that you can actually tune in live when I do live streams. All my content is live, unedited. Number one, I don't have time to do any editing. And number two, I think it's better to just have raw conversations and not like polish it, because that's something I learned a long time ago. And then you can use promo code JoelEvan for 15% off of your one-on-one with me that you can book with me at RachelVarga.ca. And when you go to RachelVarga.ca, you'll see this little pop-up. I think I just like wrapped up a cold therapy session in that. I'm wearing like the ARC pendant and stuff like that in that picture. But sign up for my newsletter and you'll get my free 5 steps to sophisticated skin and also my treatment planning guide. And then on my newsletter, which I send out usually about once a week or so, either new content, new biohacking tips, or different updates that you should be making for your skin every season.
Awesome. Rachel, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's just always great to hang out. Literally, I want you to rebook to be on my show like next month, please, Joel.
Well, first, I'm gonna actually implement some of the things that you recommended in the skin program, and then I'm gonna do some before. We'll do some before and after and see
Yeah.
see how I
Sounds
look.
good. Yeah, we just did your consult, so we'll get you started on a few things. As a thanks for having me on the show, I'm actually going to send you my top supplement because it's just going to help like you look your best on camera and help to reduce the diffuse redness around your nose, your cheeks, your eyes, things like that. It really works. So this is one of the antioxidants. I actually did some research for the company, and then I presented last week. It was presentation translated in like 5 languages. I presented alongside one of Canada's top craniofacial plastic surgeons, and we took I think I had 8 of my clients that I followed for even just 3 weeks. He did the same as well, and we both had the same findings. It's actually the wrinkles in the skin with our clients, even just after 3 weeks, were less deep. Pigmentation started to reduce that diffuse redness. So this is a really cool product. I can't wait for you to get your hands on as well. I know you're going to love it. Amazing. Yeah, so do that. And then we'll reconnect. I'll ship everything directly to you that I've recommended. And you're going to be like, why the heck wasn't I doing this before? Rachel, where have you been my whole life? I will share this though. I'm like everybody's secret best friend. So my clients won't always like post about me on their socials because this is the thing with like rejuvenation. Not everybody
I'm posting, baby, just so you know. Watch out.
Yeah. But a lot of times people want to keep this really private. So that's actually the beauty of, guys being able to book a one-on-one with me virtually. You don't have to leave the house. You don't have to drive to a clinic. You don't have to sit in the clinic. You don't have to meet with like, these practitioners that are just selling you like cookie cutter packages. And it can be really intimidating for men. So I know that. And I have always worked with quite a few men. And so I just make it really fun and, not like intimidating or anything like that. We'll just hang out, have a good time, and you'll learn how to age impossibly well for many more years to come.
Yep. Amazing. Rachel Varga, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Joel. Great to be here. Look forward to meeting some of you too.
Yeah.